Okay, so we're going to start now, and there are two lectures. The first lecture is really kind of different than what we've done, which is on. Okay. Yeah, I'm up here. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about heme synthesis and breakdown, and one of the reasons is that the synthesis of heme has a number of inborn errors of metabolism. And so it's really very important to people who are having some knowledge of the biochemistry, which is relatively complex, okay? Now, one of the things that we're not going to show you a lot of is structure, okay? Because the structure of heme and its the way it's metabolized becomes and how it's made becomes very complex, okay? The other one, the names are hard to pronounce, and they're usually multiple syllabuses. Syllables. Thank you. Okay, they're hard to pronounce, and so we're going to concentrate on 3 of them, okay, of 7, okay, and we're going to deal with it that way. All right. So let's start to look. It needs your magic touch. Okay. Okay. And these are the learning objectives, and you have those already, and we're dealing with you, okay? So this structure you should be very familiar with, okay, is the structure of heme. And where's the on-off for this?
Okay. Just flick it down until you see green.
Thank you. It's my last day teaching, okay, to finally figure this out, okay, good. So the heme molecule, okay, and it has iron in the +2 state, so we call that hemoglobin, okay, all right? Okay, what would it be called, and this is a science dollar, what if this were Fe+3? Methemoglobin, okay, and which one binds oxygen? What? This one does, Fe+2, and methemoglobin does not bind oxygen, okay, which is a real problem. That's one of the problems with when you get methemoglobinemia, okay, and so it's iron, okay. This structure, okay, is called a chelate, and anybody want to get a culture dollar to tell me what chelate, C-H-E-L-E, means? What do you think? Say it again? No. Well, that's what it is, but it's doing no. But no. Anybody? All right. So we have other culture dollars today. So okay, it actually stands for, I believe, Greek for the claws of a crab. So as if you were so what you were getting is what's called you in essence as if you would have I grabbed her cup, okay, and put it in there. So this would be the iron. It's in that. And now this is the science dollar, okay. The iron is bound by covalent bonds that are called coordination covalent bonds. So can somebody define a coordination covalent bond? Chemistry in high school, maybe in elementary school. Anybody remember? Well, in a bond, how many electrons are there? 2. The nitrogen is donating both. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, the coordination. Both electrons come from that. Okay, I'm dealing with it that way. Okay, so these are chelates, and so chelates are working that way, and you can actually. They define them, so if it was a single compound with 2 arms like that binding her cup, okay, so that would be the iron, that would be called didentate or bidentate. If there were 3, in this case it's like tetradentate, okay, in terms of the molecule holding it together, okay, so it's actually covalently bounded on that basis, okay, good, all right, so. All right. So now I want to be so that you can, it gets a little confusing because for each of the enzymes, save this one, okay, which is the first synthetic enzyme, you have a deficiency disease that corresponds to each of the deficiencies of each of the enzymes that are that way, okay? The group of diseases that you get are called porphyrias, okay? And the reason that they're called porphyrias is that they are colored and they will all give you port wine colored urine, okay? So they're called porphyrias, and so it's in the urine, okay? So these are a series of porphyrias. The reason the first step is not because this isn't a porphyrin, okay? It's actually a precursor for a porphyrin, okay? So now, I want you to do me a favor, okay, and number on your notes, okay, all the enzymes, okay? And the reason for it is, and I've taken diagrams from both. No, I'm going to take this out so I can see it better, okay? From both your textbook, either fourth or fifth, but also from the biochemistry book, which you all use as a text, which is what? Not Marx. Lippincott, okay? So a lot of these came from Lippincott, okay? So I would appreciate it if you would do this for me, okay? So we're going to call this enzyme delta aminolevulinic acid synthase 0, okay? Because it's not in the porphyrins, and so therefore a deficiency of that enzyme doesn't exist, okay, and deal with it that way. This enzyme, delta aminolevulinic acid dehydratase, is 1, okay? The next enzyme, which is uroporphyrinogen 3 cosynthetase, has 3, okay? Then this one, which is a decarboxylase, is called 4. This one is 5. This one is 6. And this one is ferrochelatase is 7. Okay? All right? You can tell that what ferrochelatase does already, which is the one that puts the iron into the heme molecule and allows the chelation to take place. Okay? All right. Everybody got that? All right. So we're going to come back on this and deal with it that way. Okay. So I think we're going to...
Oh, I was writing them on for you.
Okay. What?
I was just writing them on so we had it in file.
Okay, so we're going to go to another view on it, okay? And one of the problems is, at least for one of them, okay? Thank you. Okay, one of them has a different name, okay? And it's going to show up on another curve where we're going to go to as well, okay? And that's this one. Oh, we're up to this already, okay? So now we're going to do it the numbers on the same way. So you should be able to do it yourself, okay? And so on the podcast, as long as they have one set of numbers, okay? So this is the one that makes, this is the one that works for glycine and succinyl-CoA. So let's take an interest. This is going to make the building block, okay? What would be a good source of succinyl-CoA? Name 7, 6. Isoleucine, okay, that's 1. That's that amino acid, okay. What else? Valine. Methionine. We're missing one of that group. Threonine, okay. Only thing? And where is the succinyl-CoA? Where else can succinyl-CoA come from? What? What? Odd chain fatty acids, okay. All right. And where did you first learn about succinyl-CoA? TCA cycle, so it's going to come from alpha-ketoglutarate, right? And alpha-ketoglutarate in terms of amino acids can come from glutamate, glutamine, C5s and C6s, okay? So there's a whole sources, okay? What about glycine? Where are you going to get glycine from? What? Serine, okay? And whatever you ingest, okay? So that's the starting period, okay? So you know all the sources of succinyl-CoA, okay? Which is good. All right, so this enzyme is going to be 0, okay? This enzyme is going to be 1, okay? And one of the things that it's going to be very important, okay, is that this enzyme and actually ferrochelatase, which is the last enzyme, are inhibited by lead, okay, which is really very important, okay? So we're going to see that, okay? So now we can go over to the next slide. Okay. And this enzyme, hydroxymethylbilane synthase, okay, should be number 2. It has another name, okay, which is called porphobilinogen deaminase, okay? So you're going to see it, it's going to be in the next diagram, it's going to be called that, okay? All right. Then this enzyme, uroporphyrogen 3 synthase, is number 3. This enzyme, uroporphyrogen decarboxylase, is number 4. This enzyme, which doesn't have a product in between, is an oxidase. It's actually so you can write oxidase, and this is number 5. And then this is number 6, and you get protoporphyrin 9. And then on the next one, you get this one, ferrochelatase, which is number 7. Okay? All right. Okay. And we get heme, the final thing with heme. The methyl groups and these methyl groups and these ethylene groups and all of these are different than they are in the hemes that are found in. Where have you seen in hemes already in the first semester? Heme structures. Don't all answer at once. Take a chance. What? Do you know anything that's where iron is bound in a pathway and electrons go down that thing? What?
Cytochrome oxidase?
What before cytochrome oxidase? What? The complex 1. Yeah, the whole electron transport scheme it's got the heme compounds. Okay, so that's where you've seen the hemes before. Okay, and the hemes are slightly different in terms of that. They bind iron in the same way. And what happens is the iron in the heme that's going to bind oxygen doesn't change its oxidation state, but the iron in the electron transport scheme in the hemes goes from +2 to +3 and back to +2, right? So you remember they're actually passing the electrons down from one to the other. Okay, is that kind of remembering? So it's relatively familiar. Okay. Are there any questions about that? Yes, sir.
What was
5 and 6. Okay. Gotta go back. Okay. 5 was an oxidase, and it has this name before it, just an oxidase. And then this one is protoporphyrinogen oxidase, 6. Okay? So this one is 5, and this is 6. And then the last one is 7, which is ferrochelatase. Okay? All right? So I just want you to see, if, depending on where, this is one from the textbook, okay? This schematic, whereas we're going to go to the one that I think is most useful. Okay? All right. Well, this is that. Okay. Okay. For some reason, that's what I want. Okay? That diagram. Okay? And now we're going to number that one. Okay. So here we have the starting enzyme over here. Okay? Now this one gets a little confusing because they have descriptions of the various porphyrias that precede the first reaction, which is right here. Okay, so we're going to make this one 0. Correct? And then this one is 1. Okay. And then this one is 3. Okay, and we can come back and put the enzyme names there. Okay, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, and that's 7. Okay, you change direction there. Okay, all righty, all right. But for instance, 7 is ferrochelatase, so it'll actually say the deficiency tells you what the enzyme is. Okay. With the exception of one of them, they're all indicated that way, okay? So let's go through, and I will read you off what the enzymes are. 0, if you want to write this one. I don't know if you want to make a list of it, or if you want, I can make copies of this and send it to you guys, okay? And so the lists are that way. But they're actually, you should be able to look at 0 on the first one. They have the enzyme names, okay? The only one that's changed is the porphobilinogen. Yeah. Hydroxymethylbilane synthase can also be called porphobilinogen deaminase. That's number 2. Okay? Everybody comfortable with that deficiency, with that process? Okay. So let's look at this. So here again, we have the lead issue, okay? And so remember we said that this was reaction number 1, right? And these are porphyrins. Why isn't this a porphyria? Because this is not a porphyrin, okay? It's not a colored compound. This is a colored compound and effectively gets there, okay? This is a colored compound. So the enzyme that makes this, if it's deficient, this is 0, this is 1, so then it's just, this is 2. 2, yeah, that's 2, okay? Everybody see that? All right. So what's going to happen is, okay, now let's take a look at what happens with porphyrias. Okay. Well, we can talk about the porphyrias are, so where are you going to be making your primary place that you're going to be making heme? Okay? Where would you be making heme? Where do you make red cells? Bone marrow, okay? So the schematic has a scheme here, okay? So hepatic porphyrias are from liver, okay? So this one's a hepatic one. Erythropoietic porphyrias, like this one, okay, are from the bone, which is the bone marrow, okay? And then there's this one, which is both liver and that, okay? Is that making sense to people? Breakdown of heme, okay, not the synthesis of heme, would actually be done in liver, okay? So you're correct on that, okay? But this is the synthesis of it, okay? Everybody kind of comfortable with that? Okay. So ferrochelatase and this enzyme, which is number 2, okay, are inhibited by lead, okay? The other thing that you need to know, okay, which we saw in one of the others, is that once you make the heme, okay, it actually inhibits the first step, which is succinyl-CoA plus glycine, okay? What do we call that? What? It's inhibition, but it's also repression. What's the difference? Yeah.
Repression is genetic with the irrepressive transcription.
Right. So what's happening? You decrease the amount of whereas when you're inhibiting it, you decrease the activity of the protein, okay? But this has that effect. So it's an end product inhibition, but it's also an end product repression, okay? So that's the major control over this pathway, okay? So they all give you different things. Now, importantly, this one, acute intermittent porphyria, okay? So what English monarch had acute and intermittent porphyria? That's a culture dollar. You ever heard of the movie called Mad King George? probably when you were in kindergarten. Okay? Mad King George III, who was the one that gave us the United States its freedom, okay, went through acute. So he would have, occasionally he would have port wine urine, okay, but there was a problem with the CNS. Those porphyrias have problems with that, and so you get madness, okay, and so he was intermittently, it was acute, okay, not a chronic disease, acutely mad, so that's how he got the name Mad King George, and I'm saving money today, okay, all right? So that's the one. And so this is acute intermittent. It's important for you, for instance, you don't have to go back in. King George would be approximately what century? Come on, guys. When did we get our independence? 1776, okay, so yes. All right, good. The 18th century, okay, good. All right, so this one, you'll see actually barbiturates have an effect on this and can actually give you what looks like a false acute intermittent one, okay? And this is a liver disease, okay? And so it's a deficiency in the liver, okay? Because the liver is making it, okay? So that's the one of the three that we're going to be really interested in, okay? And then we're going to come up on this one. This is porphyria cutanea tarda, okay? Now, what I wanted to point out, patients that have this porphyria are not photosensitive. All the others, okay, which are 2 through, all the others that go up, okay, are going to have, patients are photosensitive, okay? So for instance, putting them out in the sunlight will cause pustules, will cause blistering, will cause itching and all of these things. So that these, all of these, whether they're in bone marrow or bone marrow in this, or liver and liver and liver and all of them. So this is the only one that's doesn't create enough. There's probably not enough ability to absorb the light, and so you don't have the effects that one sees. Is that kind of making sense to people? Okay. So then we're going to come up, and a deficiency of this enzyme, which converts this to that, is a chronic disease by, it's a deficiency of the decarboxylase. So it takes this and decarboxylates it and makes it coproporphyrin 3. It's the most common porphyria. Patients are photosensitive, and they will produce red urine, okay, chronically, okay, and so it's not like it goes and comes, okay, it's effectively it's chronic, okay. And this one is both liver and bone marrow, okay. And then the last one that we can skip over, all of these two, okay, is erythropoietic protoporphyria. It's a deficiency of the ferrochelatase, so you get the whole structure, but what you can't do is load in the Fe+2. So effectively, it doesn't bind oxygen, and it's a real problem. And it has a lot of structure with it, and so you effectively get that. So the patients are photosensitive and dealing with that. Okay, is that clear? Yes, ma'am.
So are we not to worry about the other diseases, just those two?
Yeah, okay. I mean, if you were a hematologist, you would worry about it, okay? What I tried to give you is one which was bone marrow by itself, one which is liver by itself, which is this one, and this one is bone marrow by itself, okay? So you might want to look in the textbook that this came from, okay? It's a kind of reasonable story. It's not very long, it's quick reading and relatively large print. And then this one is combined, okay? And this is the most common form, okay? So, yes?
Is erythropoietic protoporphyria chronic or acute?
This one is chronic. Okay. Okay.
Should we also know the disease where you said earlier it loads Fe3+ instead of Fe2?
It doesn't load Fe+3, ferrochelatase. Fe+2 gets oxidized to Fe+3. Okay, so from heme. So heme Fe+2 goes to heme Fe+3 because there's an oxidation going on.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that you have to do is You want to expose it, you don't want to have it to oxidizing ions, okay? And so that can be a problem. And so one of the things that you do is have a lot of glutathione around, which, remember, reacts with radioactive oxygen species. So you're going to have a lot of glutathione around on that basis, okay? So interestingly enough, what was the disease where we were having a problem with people breaking down hemolytic anemia, the disease we studied in the first semester? Yeah, G6PD deficiency, right? What happened? What was that? They had to be missing one enzyme. What? G6PD hydrogenase, right? Or deficient in it, okay? And then what else did you have to have? Excuse me? You don't make any NADPH where? Right, in that reaction, yeah, okay. Okay.
The G6PD reaction.
But what cell? Red blood cell, right? Because you make NADPH by other pathways like malic enzyme and others, okay? So it's only in the red cell. So that's a severe one, okay? So that's making sense, okay? So when you get a hemolytic anemia, okay? All right? So you can't, all right, so they have a deficiency disease. The English monarchy, probably through George III, has a whole bunch of inborn errors of metabolism. And actually, what was the Tsar Nicholas, the son of the Tsar, the Tsarevich, who was I think also Nicholas. One of the things that he had a bleeding disease, right, which was genetic. And actually, Queen Victoria married off most of her children to other kings or queens and throughout all of Europe. So there were problems, a lot of problems with hereditary diseases, and of which, what?
She spread the disease?
She effectively, yeah. Well, I think she had 12 children, okay? Maria Theresa beat her, though. I think she had 23, okay? And she was a reigning queen, well, so was Victoria, so that's a lot of kids to have in a period of time, you know. Probably I don't think she lived till 60 or something. She was having a kid a day, a week, okay? All right. Okay, so are we, I tried to simplify it for you, okay, just to concentrate on that, getting an idea that, whether it was one color red or slightly different color red, that's probably not a way to distinguish it on that, okay? All right. All right, is that clear to people? All right, so we can, yeah.
Do we have to know like the different colors?
No, the colors are there just so that you could distinguish them in the same way. This is from the textbook, okay? And dealing with it, okay? So what you can do is now mark the ones that I've marked on this, okay? So you want to put a star on this one, a star on this one, and a star on that one. And so you just now match it up, okay? And deal with it that way, okay? So you got an idea. It's not a good disease. It causes big problems with the CNS in some of them, okay? Certainly causes skin irritation and pustules and other things. Can have mental effects, madness on that basis, okay? Good, all right. So now, let's go on. Okay. Here we now have to have the degradation of heme, okay? So in the RBC, red blood cells, you can't say they have a life because they're not alive, okay? So they're just really bags of hemoglobin with what group of important enzymes? Yeah, glycolysis. Yeah, why do they have glycolysis? What do they need? What?
For their source of ATP.
Yeah, and what do you need the ATP for?
Oh, to transport NADPH transport.
Say it out loud.
Sodium, potassium.
Yeah, so that you maintain the sodium potassium ATP pump, because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? Hemolysis, okay, and so you would get a hemolytic anemia, okay? So you have to have those cells. They don't do anything else, but they do have glycolysis, which is correct, okay? But what they are used for is the sodium potassium ATPase, okay, to maintain the integrity of that, okay? So, all right. So, what's going to happen is myoglobin is a single molecule of, it's a single heme molecule, and it will also give you heme, and the cytochromes will give you heme. The red cells hang around for about 120 days. They're broken down to globin and amino acids. And do you know what the RAS is? What? Say it loud. Yeah, reticular endothelial system. And what's involved in that? Macrophages, yeah. Okay, what else? Anything else? Spleen. Okay. Lymph nodes. Okay, and they're all involved in that. So they're actually breaking it down. And then, of course, the liver is dealing with it that way, okay? So now what first is we get remove the ferric ion, and we remove a CO2, and we're starting to break up the ring, okay, which is continuous ring of the heme, and we get the first one, which is bilirubin, okay? Guess what color bilirubin is? It's red. Ruby. Okay, right? Ruby. When bilirubin, when you see it, when it's conjugated, and even when it's not conjugated inside, what do you see? Now the answer is yellow. Okay, all right. So it's that. Okay, so bilirubin itself is red, and then it's actually combined. It binds to albumin. Okay, and we're going to see. But before it becomes bilirubin, it becomes biliverdin. What color is that? Green, okay? All right? So the combined thing is now, why is it called bilirubin? Could you associate it with an organ by using the first four letters? Bile, okay? What color is bile? Have you ever seen it? If you haven't, well, maybe. What? What do you say? It's brownish, yeah. You know what it is? If you ever mixed, when you did finger painting and you had to clean up in kindergarten, and you put the paints and the brushes and all the stuff, and you mixed red and green, and you kind of got a khaki color, that's what you get with the color of bile. So I'm glad nobody said they've seen it, because that usually means that you've drunk too much, and you're not having stomach vomiting. You're actually having duodenal vomiting, where you're moving, so you're retching so much that you're moving it into the stomach and then out, okay? And so what you have is no contents left, and so it's bile that you see. So it's there's a couple of people whose eyes recognize that they had a roommate that drank that much, okay? So it's actually a mix, kind of khaki green, okay? Nobody has anything khaki on that's that color, okay? All right? And then what happens is bilirubin is actually glucuronidated, which we're going to talk about, and you get bilirubin glucuronide. This is what is called conjugate. When you add UDP glucuronate, you're actually conjugating. There are a number of things that the liver can do to molecules to get them out of the body, and one of them is to conjugate them with glutathione, and I'll show you how it gets them out of the body. Okay? All right. And then this goes to bile and bacteria, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, which are the colors that one sees in urine. Okay? This is an exciting looking at things that you shouldn't be talking about before dinner or at Thanksgiving. Yes?
What's the solubility of bilirubin before it's
Solubility of which?
the one before you add that?
Before it's primarily lipophilic. Okay? So that's the real problem. Whenever you're glucuronidating, most conjugation reactions, I can tell you what they are. Most of them, one of them is to put them on glutathione, okay, which makes it more soluble. But we'll show you, when you see the structure of what's going on, what you're really doing is tying it up and making it much more polar so that it actually gets excreted, okay, in the places that you want it to be excreted in. Is that clear to everybody? Okay, this is going to be important for you to see. And Yes, ma'am. What's happening is, and his question was, what is it soluble in? It's primarily lipophilic.
What, sorry?
The bile, bilirubin, before it gets conjugated. Okay, this is this is not a covalent bond. This is just it's being adsorbed onto albumin, but the albumin comes off, and the bilirubin is not terribly water soluble. Okay, so what happens is we're going to glucuronidate it, conjugate it to make it much more water soluble, so that you can get it out of the body. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, is everybody kind of clear with that? Okay, thank you, that's a good question, okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to go, let's take a look at the structure of bilirubin. Okay, and all right, so here's our heme molecule. What happens is you cleave this bridge, and that comes off as carbon, I'm sorry, not CO2, it comes off as carbon monoxide. But don't worry about carbon monoxide, you know, you're not breaking down that much carbon monoxide, producing that much carbon monoxide that you're going to set off your carbon monoxide and smoke and detectors and in their smoke detectors. Okay, I actually, but don't, you know, you laugh about it. In my neighborhood 2 Sundays ago, all of a sudden the fire engines came and somebody had just turned their heat on, and their carbon monoxide detector went off. And they were producing carbon monoxide because they weren't combusting in their furnace, and it took them. They came through with fans and cleared it all out, and they were there for about 3 or 4 hours. Okay, to in essence, so carbon monoxide, especially at the beginning of the season where people have clogs in their, you know, a bird build a nest in their flue, and it's a real problem. So carbon monoxide is really killer, and one of the problems is it doesn't have any smell. Okay, and unlike some of the others, and so it's a very, very toxic. If you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, and you're like living near the furnace or under the furnace or in the basement where your furnace is, because the carbon monoxide is actually very heavy. Where I live now, you have to have a carbon monoxide detector on every floor in which you have people occupying it. So I have one in the basement, I have one on my first floor, I have one on my second floor, and I have half a floor which is an attic. Don't have it because nobody lives there, okay? So carbon monoxide is really important, especially when you see it at this time. So flues, or even things like water heaters or chimneys that are blocked, and that can be a problem, okay? So what happens is that this gets oxygenized to biliverdin, okay, and then that gets converted to bilirubin, okay, and so that's where you get the khaki color. So, okay, so UDP glucose. Where have you seen that before? What pathway? What? Oh, not all at once, just loud enough that I can hear it. Glycogen synthesis, okay? We made UDP glucose, okay? And so what we got was a glucose molecule and UDP glucose on it, okay? So we've added a lot of hydroxyl groups to this molecule, okay, with UDP, and we get the dehydrogenase, and now we can take this group, which is an alcohol, okay, and we oxidize it to a carboxylic acid group. So now we have a molecule, okay, which if we transfer it, okay, to ROH, and the ROH in this case would be heme, bilirubin, we add this glucuronic acid to it. So this would be the bilirubin attached with it. And so now what we've done is we've put a ball and chain on there. It was very lipophilic, and now it has 4 or 5 hydroxyl groups and a carboxyl group. So the chances of it going into fat is very small, okay, and crossing membranes, okay, when it gets filtered in the kidney, it's going to stay in the forming urine, okay? Is that making sense to people? Okay. That process is called the glucuronidation. It's not the only glucuronidation that you can have, but it's probably one of the most effective ones. Okay, all right. Okay, so you see what here? So here's bilirubin diglucuronide. So here's you can see that this is the bilirubin that's come from heme, okay? And that effectively we attach these two balls and chains, okay, effectively to this molecule and make it very, very lipophilic, lipophobic, okay? Everybody? Lipophobic, yeah. Sorry, thank you. All right. Okay. So this is the way of the catabolism of heme, okay? All right. It's relatively simple. This is from the textbook. Okay, so red senescent red cells are the major source of heme proteins, okay? So that's really what's happening. Senescent, the breakdown of heme to bilirubin occurs in macrophages of this is the whole reticular endothelial system. So if you don't remember what the RES is, here it's listed right here. Tissues, tissue macrophages, spleen, and liver, okay? And so what happens is that this is forming, and then this ends up becoming bilirubin, okay? And this is the GI tract, okay? And then the bilirubin is from, this is the blood, okay? And so where it's a B, it's straight bilirubin. I wrote some notes on that. Okay, so that's bilirubin, okay, and now it passes in here, and now it's in the liver, and then it gets glucuronidated, okay, and so this BG stands for glucuronidation. It could be di or mono, doesn't matter, it's got enough on there to make it that way. And then it goes from the liver, it goes into the gallbladder where it's concentrated, okay, and then it's released in what? The common bile duct, okay, and it's released back in here. So this is the duodenum and then the ileum and all of that, and this is which is the glucuronidated bile, okay? Some of what occurs in here is absorbed from the gut and enters the portal system, okay, which is right here, okay, so the liver portal system, or the liver portal system from here, where's 6, okay. In the intestine, it's converted by bacteria to urobilinogen, okay? So this is going to be a bile kind of derivative, but it's associated with the urine, okay? You're going to see it that way. So this is urobilinogen, okay? And then the urobilinogen, that's the U, effectively can go, and the remainder of is transported by the blood to kidney, where it's converted to yellow urobilin and excreted, giving urine its characteristic color. So why is urine yellow? Because of urobilin that's present there, okay? All right. A portion of the urobilin, of the urobilinogen, participates in the enterohepatic circulation. What's the enterohepatic circulation? Somebody give me an example of what happens. Loud enough that everybody can hear. What do you think? What?
When you recycling bile, you take that.
Right. Yeah, so not all the bile goes out, so some of it gets cycled and it goes back again, and it's between the intestine and the liver in this case, okay, and the portal, it's through the portal circulation, okay. Drugs, for instance, can get trapped in the enterohepatic circulation. So, for instance, if you have a drug which is hangs around for a long period of time, part of it can be that it's in the enterohepatic circulation, okay? So it will be hanging around for a long period of time, all right? So that is what it is. Okay, now, I didn't mention it, okay? But bile, what are the major components of bile? We talked about 2 of them. Bilirubin and biliverdin, and those are called bile pigments. But then there's another group that's bile something or other. What? Bile what? Salts, bile salts, right? And bile acids, right? Could you give me an example of a bile salt? And a name like? Yes? Eloate? No, what about quinocolic acid or one of the cholic acid? Yeah, cholic acid, yeah. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so that's what it is. So we've seen the second piece of bile acids and bile salts, okay? All right. Okay. All right. And then ends up here. Some of the is reabsorbed from the gut and enters the portal blood. And urobilinogen is oxidized by intestinal bacteria. So this is way low down, and they give to a brown stercobilin, okay, which is the brown color, which is the color of stool, the normal color of stool. But you'll hear descriptions of stool where it looks clayey or tarry. What about stool being tarry? What do you think that would be due to?
That's when there's bleeding in the stomach because blood mixes
Yeah,
with acid.
upper GI tract bleeding, and it gets really dissolved. It's in essence really metabolized, okay, or broken down, and it gets tarry. Blood in the colon, for instance, bleeding in the colon, which will present rectally, will usually be what's called frank blood. It looks like blood, okay? It might be a little darkened because of this stercobilin, okay? But effectively, it looks more that way so that you can distinguish where bleeding is occurring from the color of the blood, the stool on that basis, okay? All right, or the presence of blood, frank blood, okay? All right, not Frank's blood, okay, all right, okay. So now what we want to do is talk about jaundice, okay? And so jaundice is when you get yellow color in your skin, and it's due to too much bilirubin, okay, on that basis, usually the unconjugated bilirubin, okay? So the first is, there are 4 types that you can have. Hemolytic jaundice follows massive lysis of red cells, including things like glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency after oxidative stress, which we talked about earlier, okay? Everybody see that? So when you're breaking down a lot of red cells, okay, what cells, precursors would you see if somebody was breaking down a lot of red cells? Red cell precursors. What? What? Reticulocytes, yes. And how do you know that they're reticulocytes? They're not clear in the middle, okay? There's granules in there where they're in the process of getting rid of everything but the enzymes they need and the heme, okay? But that's a very good answer, reticulocytes, okay? Right? Okay. All right. Which overwhelms the liver's ability to glucuronidate if highly unconjugated bilirubin leads to jaundice, okay? So that's the normal breakdown when you're having a breakdown of a lot of red cells, okay? Okay? All right. Then the next one is hepatocellular jaundice brought around by damage to liver cells. Cirrhosis is caused by what? One of the major ones that causes cirrhosis of the liver is alcohol abuse, okay? And it's irreversible. Once you start to get cirrhosis of the liver, it's pretty much terminal on that basis. Or hepatitis. The liver is not able to conjugate the bilirubin. So here, you're not able to conjugate it again. Unconjugated bilirubin goes up and conjugate also. And it's not because it's not secreted efficiently in the bile and leaks into the blood from the liver. Okay? All right. All right. Yes, sir?
You said bilirubin is, I guess, is it lipophilic, right? Unconjugated
Yeah.
bilirubin is
Yeah.
lipophilic. So where exactly does this
Hmm?
conjugated bilirubin go?
Say it again?
I said, where's the unconjugated bilirubin ending up?
Well, how does it get around? But the unconjugated bilirubin is associated with albumin. That's how it makes it through. So it binds to albumin, or albumin binds it. Okay, and so therefore it can actually make it through. Okay, it's not soluble, but it's kind of covered. If you think about the what? It's kind of like covering it up so that it can actually be associated with that. Okay. Is that making sense to people? All right. All right. So obstructive one is the common bile duct, okay? So I think we talked about the common bile duct. So what other organ enters besides the gallbladder, what other organ empties into the common bile duct? Yeah, you got it. Say it. Just verbalize it. The pancreas, okay? So when you have blockage in that one, we talked about blockage in the common bile duct. What happens to the pancreas? What did the pancreas release? We talked about that in one of the early lectures. What? Yeah, but that's its that's from the islets of Langerhans. But there are a group of enzymes that it releases. Proteins, yeah, okay. Enzymes are proteins. Okay, well, let's be specific. What kind of enzymes? What? Trypsin. Okay, and what kind of what does that do? It breaks down proteins, yes, but what kind of? It's called a peptidase, right? Okay, so peptidases and all of those. So you would have that. So blockage of this, so you get blockage of the common bile duct is going to end up with jaundice, okay, obstructive jaundice, okay, and also you can get pain because you're actually digesting the pancreas because you're exceeding the ability of the trypsin inhibitory factor to effectively control it, okay? Is that kind of making sense? What I've tried to do is to concentrate on the medical side of this as opposed to whether the structures were correct. I know it's kind of vague, but I'm trying to give you the idea that I think it would be useful then. And then jaundice in neonates, okay? You've all had visited a newborn baby and you might go to see the nursery, and what color lights are being used in the nursery on some of the children that have things covering their eyes? You've never seen a baby in a nursery? Oh God. You got to find people who have babies. Don't make them yourself. What? Nope. What? Okay, so we'll tell you why. It's actually blue light or purple, the blue light, okay? You said blue light. Why are you guys so shy? I've known you for 2 semesters, okay? Come on. I know I didn't see you most of the time in the first semester because of that room, okay? But yeah. And you were used to sit over on that side. So you used to sit on that side of the room. She was there, you were there. And then there were people who blended with the background, okay? So, yeah. Okay, don't be shy, okay? It's very useful for you. Jaundice in neonates, because of the activity, this enzyme, bilirubin glucuronal transferase, so the conjugation enzyme, the one that puts the active glucuronic acid on, is low, and unconjugated bilirubin is high and can access the brain and cause toxic encephalopathy, okay? So unconjugated bilirubin in infants is a real problem. The blood-brain barrier is not very, in neonates, and depending on how young they are. My grandson was actually 11 weeks early, so he only weighed 2.5 pounds. He was about this big. He was a little bit bigger than this thing, okay? And he's now 13, and is 5'7", okay? So and growing like a weed, and doing well. So these are important things on controlling it. So the unconjugated is decreased by placing the neonates with jaundice under blue fluorescent lights, which convert the bilirubin to a water-soluble compound, which can be excreted through the bile. Okay. So you're breaking down the bilirubin, which is not terribly soluble in water, into more soluble compounds, so that you can get rid of it on that basis. And it's usually, they have to cover the eyes because they have to protect the retinas, okay? And so you'll see the lights. So next, with your first child, you'll be much more aware when you have your first child, which is not that far away, okay? It's within 10 years, okay? Unless you're going to be a neurosurgeon, okay? Yeah. Okay. Have babies or find somebody who you babysit or something, okay? So, all right? Okay. All right. And this is just a schematic of neonatal, okay, and dealing with it that way, okay? Or is that kind of clear? So is it clear what I want you to know about the synthesis and all of these things, okay? And these are important things for you to know, okay? All right, why don't we take a break, and then I'll start again at 2. And I'll be happy to answer questions, okay? And I hear that you're going to We're going to have a review class, and you're going to send questions to her, okay? Please send them earlier than later, okay?
What did you say I didn't hear you say what this BG stood
That stands for Billy Rubin Glucuronidase.